Hey everybody, welcome to Burr Tech. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about how Apple made a huge mistake with their previous MacBook Pro lineup and how they fixed it. Alright, welcome back. First in this video, make sure you like, subscribe. The more subscribers you get, the more content we can make. Number one reason why you subscribe to this amazing YouTube channel is to get in the money-making trends before they go mainstream. Alright, so yesterday, Apple released a bunch of new MacBook Pros, and they have backtracked seriously on things that they've previously said. So let's dive into that. So a few years ago, Apple released a MacBook Pro without an SD card slot, without HDMI ports, and without any USB-A ports. And they said it was time to move on. Not only that, they added in a touch bar that was not a key touch bar, and their keyboards weren't very good. They added in a new kind of mechanism that just didn't feel right. So Apple made a ton of mistakes in that lineup, and then yesterday they pretty much fixed all of those. So this is very interesting because it's possible for one of the most valuable companies on the planet to make mistakes and then backtrack. And if they can do it, well then you can do it too. One of the things that I always say about success is that the most successful people I know unlearn the bad information and continue to learn, and they even say that their previous self was wrong. Now they might not admit that publicly, but they definitely do admit that their previous self was incorrect in a particular instance, and then they use that to move forward. So really, when it comes to improving, you have to unlearn the bad things. And this is something that's a part of the modern world because it changes so quickly. And this MacBook Pro is a very good example of that. So I understand what Apple was thinking about years ago when they released that specific MacBook Pro. They were thinking that everyone would just move to USB-C because they were moving to USB-C. And well, that would have been really awesome because one of the things that was really frustrating at that time is I had to buy all these dongles from all of my peripherals that used USB-A. And because of this, I really disliked the USB-C only. It was too early. However, in that time, a lot more companies have been moved to USB-C, and really, I really want USB-C to be the standard on pretty much any device. If I want to plug something in, it's just have it be USB-C. To make matters more complicated, not every USB-C is created equally, and luckily there has been some standardization as to what will be on the USB-C cable, so you can know exactly which cable you are getting. Nevertheless, I do like that port compatibility. Imagine if your power outlets changed every 5 years. That would just be nuts. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. So let's have one kind of adapter and then maybe update that every 10 years or so. So the other thing about that previous MacBook Pro is that the keyboard wasn't very good and it got a lot of hate. In fact, I really hated it so much that I just basically put my MacBook Pro up on this little stand and used a different keyboard. The keyboard was so terrible that I didn't even buy my wife a MacBook Pro at the time because the keyboard was terrible and I think they would fix it. And luckily enough, they did fix it. Now remember that you can't always hit a home run every single time. There will be times where you strike out and there will be times where you don't perform as much. And this MacBook Pro is a very good example of that. Another good analogy would be that you take 2 steps forward or 1 step back, or maybe 3 or 4 steps forward and 1 step back, because sometimes this just happens in life no matter how good you are at analyzing the situation. You can't account for all the variables. Now, this particular keyboard wasn't very good, and Apple has listened to their customers and made a better keyboard. And they didn't like the touch bar. I did not use that touch bar one bit when I had a MacBook Pro, and so now physical keys are back as the function keys, and it's absolutely amazing. One thing that's not in this new MacBook Pro is Face ID, which I wish there was Face ID, but they have a touch bar there, and that's sufficient for now. Another thing they did is they added in a notch at the top, which is okay, I guess, and the screen, of course, is going to be a lot better than previous MacBook Pro lineups. So here's the thing, that previous MacBook Pro model that wasn't very good was my last MacBook Pro. I don't think I'm gonna buy another MacBook Pro unless a few things change. In fact, I just buy iMacs now, and I think if I am gonna buy a new Mac for my desktop, I'm gonna buy a decked out Mac Mini, and if the rumors of a Mac Mini Pro are there, I might just buy that so I can get a really big monitor and switch between my PC and Mac. This is something that I think would be very good. So of course the iMac has the M1 chip, and this new MacBook Pro has even more power than the iMac, so it is a good device, but I don't really like the idea of using a MacBook anymore just because I don't use my computer in any other location. One of the things that I do is I have a specific spot to do all my work, and when I'm in that spot, I only do that work. Now, of course, the flip side with that is that once I'm away from that spot, I cannot do a lot of work. And this does get a little bit annoying from time to time, but I don't think the modularity of the computer really matters. Now, of course, if I was traveling a lot, I might get the MacBook Pro, but I don't really travel a lot. And well, I just don't really need a MacBook Pro. Now, having said that, this MacBook Pro is really good. And if I were in a market for a MacBook Pro, I would absolutely do that. Now, the other thing I really want Apple to do is to add in a MacBook Air with a numpad. I really do like the numpad, and that's probably the only reason I have a PC. And of course, I think if I am going to have a laptop, I will probably buy the Framework laptop, and I have a video about that here, which you can check out. It's really awesome, and I really like that idea more. So having said all of this, Apple is listening to its customers and it is still innovating. Again, maybe you're a company that takes 5 steps forward and 1 step back. And maybe the case of Apple, it might be 20 steps forward and 1 step back. Now, if you're looking to profit off of Apple, what I would recommend doing is just dollar cost averaging the stock. Apple does pay a small dividend, but if you are looking for something for your 401k or your retirement, I would recommend just buying Apple. And that's what I'm doing. I'm buying a little bit of Apple stock every single week, whether it goes up or down or sideways, or who knows. I don't really care. I'm just gonna buy some Apple stock. I think it's something that is really gonna be good. And I think unless things change, I think Apple is going to be there in 25 years or 30 years or whenever I want to retire. And the shares will be more than what I purchased it for. Now, I think if you have a tax-free account for your retirement in whatever country you're in, this is something that you want to do. So definitely, if I was in the market for a MacBook Pro, I would absolutely like these changes. 1, the keyboard is definitely a lot better. And 2, you have more ports. You have an HDMI port and you have an SD card slot. I'm sure the lack of the SD card slot really irked a lot of video developers. And I could see a lot of people using the MacBook Pro in addition to their video. So I have a very simple setup with my iPhone and the back wall and just me with a simple lapel mic. But if I had 2 or 3 videos, but if I had 2 or 3 cameras and they were all in SD card slots, what I would probably want to do is just put that into my MacBook Pro and upload it to Dropbox or whatever. And I think that would be probably one of the best uses for it. And the SD card slot is something that was absolutely needed. I'm sure Apple got so much hate mail because they removed the SD card slot. Because if we've learned anything is that you can move things forward, but the world around Apple is slow to change. So let's look at what Apple has to deal with in the last couple years. They released a MacBook Pro that nobody liked. They lost the lawsuit against Epic, and there's some big right to repair movement things on its bow. So, am I bullish for the company? Absolutely. Will they make a little less profits because of all this litigation? A little bit, but that doesn't matter because you know what? Apple's brand is so strong, and if you're wondering why Apple does so well, it's because it's the marriage of software and hardware at the same time, and they do it so magnificently that it is really good. I rarely, if ever, have a problem with any of my Macs, and that cannot be said with all the PCs that I've purchased over the years. The Macs that I've purchased are always of amazing quality, and I really do like the time that I save for not sending them in. Now, of course, people have problems with their iPhones, they have problems with their Macs, but I've personally never experienced it. And as soon as I said that, I'm pretty sure every single one of my Mac devices is gonna break, because of course it will. And of course that's a joke, but at the same time, I rarely have problems with my Mac. And remember that once you get to a certain point, time is money. So at some point in time in your life, you'll realize that it's easier to just spend the upfront money to get a more quality product than to spend the time repairing it. And this is the opportunity cost that Apple really sells to you. And of course, Apple loves selling this opportunity cost to pretty much everyone. And they do a really good job of it. And once I switched to Apple, I realized that I was saving a lot more time. So whether you're saving money or time, when you really think about it, you're actually saving the same thing. So if you're saving money, you're saving time, you're saving money. And again, Apple really does a good job with this, and they know that there is almost too much choice in the world, and if you just simply walk into the Apple store and buy whatever products they have, you'll just have a product that works for you, and you'll save a bunch of time and hassle, because not only are you saving time, you're saving the energy of frustration with perhaps a different product. Now, I had an Android phone for a very limited time, and I was super frustrated with it, and my iPhone since, are been so much better. In fact, I used to have a Windows phone, which I think was extremely underrated, but well, that's a topic for a different time. Nevertheless, because of this new MacBook Pro, I've never been more bullish on Apple, and if you really want to profit off of all of Apple, I would just recommend dollar cost averaging. Now again, you don't have to put in a lot of money, but you should probably put in some money every week. They probably will split the stock again, and that of course is a really good thing. If you don't know how splits work, I can maybe talk about that in a different video. If you want to see that video, again, just post in the comments down below. Nevertheless, Apple's probably a good bet for the long-term future, and if they're coming out with an Apple Car in the next 5 or 10 years, that's going to be huge as well. Now, the other thing that you have to remember is that there could be a stock market crash, whatever that means, and you might lose some money, but you don't lose that money unless you don't sell. So let's say Apple goes down 30%. Well, you just buy some more. The point is that in the future, will Apple be worth more than it is today? I think it absolutely will be, and this MacBook Pro shows that they are willing to listen to customers and get things right. So if it's going to be worth more in the future, you kind of want the stock to go down because you're getting a better deal. So let's say you could buy $500 today and it goes down 30%. Well, that $500 gets you more shares in the future, and because it gets you more shares, well, then you're going to be able to have a bigger upside. And this works with, of course, Bitcoin or real estate or anything. So the best way to make money is to buy long-term investments, and then one day you'll wake up way richer. Now, at the same time though, you should probably take a few dollars here and there and learn how to day trade, because day trading will get you a lot more money quicker. But if you ever luck out, you want to put things into hard assets, and believe it or not, I would say that Apple, even though it's technically not a hard asset, it's probably a win. Remember that tech stocks do outpace money printing. Remember that tech stocks do outpace money printing, and believe it or not, bio stocks might actually outpace money printing too, because Moderna is actually up more than Bitcoin, and I'm going to talk about that in a different video. So in conclusion, the new MacBook Pro is really good, and it really highlights how a company can make a mistake and it can change that going forward. And remember that this is a good example of life. Sometimes you might take 4 steps forward and 1 step back, or sometimes you might even take 4 steps forward and 3 steps back. But you know what? As long as you're moving forward, it is really good. Remember that whether you're making new skills or you're investing your money, you will learn along the way because you'll make mistakes, and if you really learn from those mistakes, your future will be brighter. All right, so that concludes this video. I want to know your thoughts down below. What do you think of Apple? What do you think of all the things that have happened to Apple? And would you buy the new MacBook Pro? Remember that this channel is new Patreon said we sell our digital products down below. The more we get from the content that you buy below, the more content we can make. If you really like this channel, you can subscribe to Matthew Interactive's huge library of content. We release 20-60 hours of fresh new Learn to Code content every single month. With your help, we can release 200 to 300 hours of content per month every single month. All we need is 10,000 paid subscribers. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. We have a monthly and yearly options for anyone who hasn't, but if you've already subscribed, you make not only this channel possible, but my company possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.